tell you what.
Oh man, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 132 of the Retic Lounge. I am Lucas, that is Nathan, and we are jumping into another episode of our Complete Reticulated Python book club series. And I think there's been a lot of people in our Patreon, Nathan, that are excited for chapter 11, which is Morphs in Reticulated Python.
I don't share the same sentiment.
I don't. It's my least favorite because there's so much info to dive into. So much info that this is only going to be part one of potentially 3-part episode for the morph part. Just to give you guys like a little idea of how big this chapter is. We're on chapter 11. That starts on page 209. Chapter 12 starts on page 314. So that is half of what we've done so far.
The amount of pages I have marked, usually I go in, I make like detailed like highlights of stuff that I need to cover, but in this one, and that was a little too overwhelming.
Yeah. No, it's a lot. Like I didn't highlight, I didn't do anything. I just kind of read through half the chapter and was like, I guess this is going to be a stopping point, right? And I'll worry about the rest later. But yeah, it's a lot of information. I'm really excited to jump into. It's a lot to learn, right? So you're going to get to learn the history of each morph, when it came into the U.S., when it was founded, where and what island it was located.
Some of these aren't even in the U.S.
Yeah, which I mean, you know, cool to know, right? Sucks that they're not in the U.S. That's for sure.
Well, give it time.
Yeah, exactly. Give it time. There'll be time. But yeah, I mean, there's
I'll
plenty.
take a claw wheel.
Yeah, all day. So with that being said, before we jump into chapter 11, I do want to give a huge shout out to one of our sponsors, Cold Blooded Cafe. Again, if you guys have not used our code yet, Reptile Lounge 20 for 20% off of your order. And if it's over $200, you'll get free shipping. Hit up Des. Cold Blooded Cafe, time and time again, has not steered me wrong. They've had great quality rodents. Really happy that I'm using them solely for my rodent supply. Haven't had any complaints about them. Give them a heads up again, Reptile Lounge 20 for 20% off. Oh, real quick, let me kind of share a little bit about me being gone for a little bit. Yeah. Anyways, so this might be my last episode, or I have one more episode after this. Baby is due on the 19th, and so I'm going to be taking a month off of like recording.
The 19th of April, correct?
No, March.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's why I thought we had. That's why I thought we had more time.
No, 1 week.
Okay, yeah. Lucas will be gone.
Real soon.
We'll most likely have one more episode. Hopefully, we can lock that down for Sunday and not Tuesday, Lucas.
Yeah, the day before.
Yeah, so we will have one more episode with Lucas.
Maybe.
No, we will. Baby or not, we're doing. Just kidding. Hopefully one more episode with Lucas. I don't mind doing that one alone. I have a couple things up my sleeve for a couple guests to come on while Lucas is away, and maybe even trying to lock down Glenn to unwrap some of the stuff in the rest of this chapter, because as I was telling Lucas before we started recording, the albino portion alone,
which we're not getting to this episode,
could be its own episode.
Yeah, the albino stuff alone is so dense and heavy and has, there's a lot.
Yeah. So, honestly, guys, any of this information, yes, the book club that we are presenting is valuable in its own sense, but if you want to get the most out of this book, make sure you're going over getting your own copy of The Complete Reticulated Python by Glenn McClellan. Lucas, we need to run our...
We do. I was just thinking that and hoping you weren't going to bring it up.
No, I'm going to figure it out. You don't have to worry about it. I'll figure it out for our next Zoom call, which is this Sunday or next? Yeah, this Sunday. So we will be doing that live on our Zoom next Sunday. Don't worry if you're not able to make it. We will still make sure that whoever wins that copy, whether they're present on the Zoom or not, is the one getting that copy.
We gotta make a post so that they can either like it. So like a way.
I realize. Okay,
cool.
I that's why I said I got it.
All right, awesome. All participants involved here. I'm excited for that.
Yeah. So I guess you have, on the release of this episode, a day or two to get in and get locked into that giveaway. So patreon.com/the-retic. Wow, I can't even speak tonight. Patreon.com/the-Retic Lounge. Join the best Retic. Oh my God.
Discord
and Patreon. Sorry, 11 clients. My conversation is almost gone for the day. So
it's a good thing we're going to be reading tonight.
I don't know. Man. We'll see.
All right, let's jump in. Morphs in Reticulated Python, Chapter 11. Nathan, start us off with a quote. Whether you've poured your heart and soul into your reptile business or you've just begun your business journey, AE Foundry has you covered with next-level expertise in graphic design, motion graphics, videography, photography, and so much more. If you've been dying for a new logo for your reptile business, motion graphics for your current logo, a new website, or need assistance making your video podcast come to life, then listen carefully. AE Foundry's mission places storytelling at its core. AE Foundry believes that a distinctive story and background are the driving forces that set your brand apart. In today's market, consumers seek more than just products. They crave a connection built on trust with the brands they cherish. AE Foundry is committed to empowering small businesses and fostering authenticity that resonates with their consumers. Reach out to them and let them help you craft a visual narrative that helps establish a genuine and lasting connection with your audience. To contact AE Foundry, email them at aromero@aefoundry.com or on Instagram @AEFoundry. When it comes to housing your retics, trust me, you're going to want an enclosure that will be just as strong and durable as your reticulated python. The Heartland Reptile Enclosure is next level tough and will outlive you and your retic by several generations. Heartland Reptile Enclosures are designed and manufactured out of powder-coated aluminum to provide the highest quality and longevity available in the reptile enclosure. What makes them even better is they are lighter than your PVC and plastic enclosures out there and are extremely tough. Stop playing around with plastic enclosures for your large constrictors and step up your enclosure game with the Heartland Reptile Enclosure. To inquire about one of these enclosures, speak to Jordan himself at Heartland Reptiles on Instagram, Facebook, and on TikTok. Here on TRL, we preach about the importance of using hooks, feeding tongs, and other tools with your reticulated python all the time. Animal Equipment by Stoney not only has all the tools you need for any snake you keep, but they have the absolute best hooks on the market. What sets Animal Equipment by Stoney's hooks apart from the other guys is their polycarbonate hook ends that provide a warm feel that won't disturb or bother your retic, ensuring a positive interaction from the get-go. Since 2008, AE Stoney has been supplying zoos, herpetologists, and other animal professionals with their tools. It's time for you to step your hook game up and buy an AE Stoney hook. To learn more and purchase one of their amazing products, visit aestoney.com.
If we didn't have genetic mutations, we wouldn't have us. You need error to open the door to the adjacent possible. Stephen Johnson, 2010.
Literally talking about humans. Like, if you didn't have genetic mutations, humans wouldn't be in existence. It's a cool quote.
Yeah, I wanna dive into where that came from, but that's for a different day.
Right. Okay, so
I just want to start with the first paragraph, just giving kind of an overview of what we're going to be getting into with this chapter, and then we'll start diving through morphs, I guess. So, by and large, the captive reptile trade is driven by the selective breeding and stacking of phenotypic mutations or morphs. Reticulated pythons follow much of the same pattern as the rest of the reptile trade in this regard. Reticulated pythons have around 30 known heritable morphs, offering various colors, patterns, and sizes within a single species. This chapter will explore these mutations, genetics, histories, and origins.
yeah. So the first one that we jump into and is anery, anarthristic. Cool thing about anery is that, well, I mean, first, before we jump into that, 30. That's a lot. That's like single morphs, right? Yeah, that's a lot.
That's what we know.
Yeah, that's insane.
I mean, diving through this chapter, it's for later on in the chapter, but I mean, there's morphs I honestly didn't know about until going through this. One that Lucas didn't know about, but I'll wait for that surprise at the end of the chapter.
Yeah, no, it's a if you guys have the book, it's on page 192. If you guys want to just
291
or 291, sorry. Yeah, go for it. But yeah, let's jump into anarthristic. So the cool part about anarthristic is it's been found in all three species of reticulated python. So MR reticulatus, MR saputri, and MR jampianus, right? So that's unique in and of itself. And
then it's the only morph confirmed to have originated on any of the MR jampianus.
Yeah, any of the superdwarf. Exactly. The only morph found on the superdwarf island is anery. Let's jump into a little bit more about anery. What's really cool here, and again, I can't emphasize enough, you guys need to get the book. This is it's a over 100-page chapter, and it's because it provides a picture of nearly every morph out there.
And you're not going to get the true color of this Slayer type anery on camera. There's no way to capture this, but it's one of the coolest aneries that I've ever seen, and that one's over with Chris McVicker.
Yeah. So on those pictures right there, you have the anery Slayer type, you have an anery Calitoa type, and you have an anery Kayuati type, all on that page. But because of reticulated python's ecology and morphology, it is logical that a non-deleterious recessive mutation like anarthrism has spontaneously arisen multiple times in multiple locations, in multiple subspecies, and has persisted. So if you think about the ecology and morphology of retics, you would see why anarthrism makes sense. They're able to blend in. They're able to... It's something that has been proven to actually be a great survival mechanism in certain areas.
Yeah, of all of the morphs, it's the one that, makes maybe the most sense. There's some more cryptic ones that also, for like camouflage purposes, like in my mind, have like a survival mechanism behind them. But then there's some that just like throw that out of the water. So
yeah, like albinos. They're not hiding anywhere.
Pieds and
right. All right, let's define anarthrism. So it is the lack of erythrophores, a red carotenoid containing chromatophore. As such, animals that exhibit anarthrism do not display red coloration. So it's the absence or lack of red pigmentation.
And with any of the MR jampianus, they're already very much lacking in red. So it gets into in this little portion that distinguishing an anery from non-anery type MR Championis can be increasingly difficult, and that's why there's so much confusion within the super dwarf community of what is anery.
Now, if you look at the anery Solayer type on the top of that page, that is a vast, distinct difference from a Solayer, and Solayer's base color is red in nature, right? So it's red, orange, and like a rich maroon brown. So that's why that animal right there looks insane.
And Chris says that the picture is definitely like the best representation of anery in that animal, and that like when it fires up, fires down, doesn't look quite that silver.
Right. Yeah. No, that's an amazing picture. Yeah, I've seen that snake, a video of it fired up, and it's wild. So let's talk about the biological processes that drive color mutations. So they're not really well understood. And in 2020, there's a landmark study mapped the location of the lavender mutation in the corn snake genome and examined the process driving it. Researchers found that pattern and color mutation in reptiles are brought about by the interactions among three chromatophore types: black melanoforms with melanin-packed melanosomes, red and yellow xanthopores with pteridine and carotenoid-containing vesicles, and iridophores filled with light-reflecting platelets generating structural color. Right. So for a lot of people that don't understand biology, all this is saying is that they found within corn snakes the lavender mutation and were able to basically dissect and see what is it in the genetic makeup that is causing the genetic differences in what appears to be a different morph. Those are the three main areas. And so, we can take that study and apply it to snakes generally, right? But I still think that it's something that more studies need to confirm.
And then this chapter would be even more confusing to me.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So anerythrism has been seen in snakes from Jampea types, Coyote types, Madu types, Calitoa types, Carumpa types, and that's within the Jampionis subspecies. Within
Putrii, anerythrism has been seen in pure Tambalongan type reticulated pythons and Solayer type crosses. The Jeff Wilson anerythristic line of Solayer type crosses, which is the only named line of the morph in the locality type, is said to have originated from a wild caught Solayer type female who had a slightly different look to her.
I wish I had that female.
Same. I wish there was a picture of that female.
Yeah. So it should be noted that the Wilson anerythrism line is limited to Solayer type crosses, even though it originates from a wild collected animal. So what that being said is that the animal, the animal itself that was founded on Solayer looked a little different, but was taken to other variations of like Jampionis, I think it was originally, that created the anery phenotype. Or I guess the homozygous form, or I hope I'm saying that correctly, whichever's the visual representation.
That would be the phenotypic expression, because isn't homozygous like the super form?
Sure. Yeah. Well, if we're thinking about a recessive form, I think the homozygous is the recessive.
Okay.
And then the heterozygous or the yeah, I'm not even going to go into this because I always get confused with this and people are going to laugh at me. I'm just being honest. So there's also another possible line of anerythrism that arose from the ocelot mutation in Aubrey Pruitt of A&B Exotics collection. In addition, anerythristic-like retics have been found on Borneo, Halmahera, Sumatra, and Java. By the way, the Sumatran anery is my favorite snake of all time, like favorite retic of all time.
All right, keep going. I'm going to see if I can pull it up.
Go on the Retic Nation if you can. and type in Sumatra anery, and you'll pull it up right away. So Anthrax was known about in captive MR Jampianus far before it was named. So yeah, when people were working with this back in the 90s, that it was known that there were differences. And in 2007, from two different breedings, prehistoric pets proved Anthrax and reticulated pythons to be heritable. So in 2007 is when we proved it to be heritable, and that's when it became a morph or a mutation in reticulated pythons. So the first example originated from the progeny of Clark strain purple albino Jampea type cross produced by Bob Clark, bred to a female unknown locality type superdwarf imported by Dan Yuramovich, which later proved to be a visual anarthristic. Prehistoric pets bred the progeny together to produce the first snows, the combination of albino and anarthristic, in addition to anarthristic, albinos, and wild types. No, that's not it.
Well, sorry, you told me that would be the first thing that popped up, Lucas. That's the first thing that popped up.
It's by Jacob. He's got, man.
Okay, well, next time.
Keep going. Oh, dang it. Okay. Let me see if I can find it. I'll just tag you real quick. So you take over. We're left off on snows on page 213.
Did you already go? Sorry, I was looking, so I was not paying attention to you, Lucas. The first example of the progeny of a Clark strain purple albino Jampea cross produced by Bob Clark, bred to a female unknown locality type superdwarf imported by Dan Yuramovich, which later proved to be a visual anarthristic. Prehistoric pets bred the progeny together and produced the first snows, the combination of albino and anarthristic. In addition to anarthristic, albinos and wild types in the same year, Jay Brewer and Tim O'Reilly produced platinum anarthristic Jampea type crosses, further cementing the heritability of the mutation. Corey Browning, 6 months later, using the offspring from the same unknown locality type superdwarf and Clark strain albino Jampea type cross that made prehistoric pet snows, produced snow, albino, anarthristic reticulated pythons, highlighting the replicability of the mutation.
Yeah. So I'm not going to give up. I'm still finding this.
All right. Well, I'll keep going then. Other anarthristic like reticulated pythons have also arisen in captivity. These snakes were called mercuries, a shared name between Greg Bryant's line of heritable anarthristic Jampea types. Unlike Bryant's mercury line, these other mercuries are non-heritable. Their anarthristic-like phenotype likely arose from congenital defects during the incubation process, as they are not shared by their progeny. Regardless of the name, at this time, anarthrism remains the only heritable mutation found in MR Jampianus and MR Saputrii.
Yeah. So I'm giving up. I will find it, but you guys will need to find it on your own. So did you get into the black pastel stuff?
No, but beyond anarthrism, other phenotypic mutations are claimed to have also arisen in MR Jampianus, like black pastel mutation in Calico types. In reality, it likely was a locality type cross. Certain Kiowa types are been observed to have an extremely dark coloration. With this in mind, the black pastel mutation in all probability was a cross between a dark Kiowa type and a Calico type.
We also want to thank VivTech Products for being an affiliate sponsor of the Retic Lounge. Stop by VivTech Products for the best UV spectrum lighting on the market that will enhance and improve your snake's overall well-being and health. Visit vivtechproducts.com and use the code ReticLounge23 today for 15% off. Again, visit vivtechproducts.com and use our affiliate code Retic Lounge 23 today for 15% off.
Looking for the perfect accessories for your hatchlings or juvenile retics? Look no further than Heli Guy Serpents. Our sponsor, Chris Sexton, is coming in hot with an amazing 3D printer, creating top-notch perches and other caging accessories for your beloved pets. Enrich your retics environment with their high-quality products. Use our promo code TRL10 for a 10% discount on your purchase. Visit them today at heliguyserpents.com and start giving your pets the best. Heli Guy Serpents, the premier source for 3D printed caging accessories. Again, that's www.heliguyserpents.com and use our promo code TRL10 for 10% off all of your 3D printed accessories today.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure Matthew Martin is the individual that termed black pastel. Matthew Martin's a name in retics that goes back a little bit. He's kind of been really absent and irrelevant for a while. I don't know what he's doing anymore, but I remember he talked a lot about the black pastel project. Definitely a phenotype. It would pass down into other babies. Some would have it, some wouldn't, but I thought it was a really, really, really cool, like just wild type look. It was super dark.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the darkness, that's not enough for me to be like, oh, it's a totally new morph. What do I know? Next to nothing, but
well, I mean, it's kind of the same thing as Krispy Kreme, right?
That's what I wanted to get into.
Yeah.
We're just about to bring up Krispy Kreme because a recently identified mutation called Krispy Kreme may join Anthrax as the second heritable morph originating in MR Jampianus. The Krispy Kreme mutation arose from Travis Cubis line superdwarfs. It's known for producing donut-shaped patterning on the snake's neck, owning to the mutation's name. In my mind, and what I've seen from all these Krispy Kremes, it just seems like a selective breeding thing more than it seems like a morph. And also, I don't believe that the trait is all that changing in pattern to where I would even start to consider it a new morph. But that's
right.
My thought on it.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll give my opinion as well. One thing that I will say is that the more that it continues to be worked with and refined at Reach Out Reptiles, the more information that we're going to get from it. But yeah, the reason why I don't consider it a mutation, I consider it more of a phenotypic expression, is because my Sula has it, my Halma has it, I hatched a Turdate that has it, I've hatched Salayers that have it.
I've had locality type crosses that
have it, right?
Yeah. That's why I'm like, is that a new morph, or is this just a little bit of a stretch to like market something? And that's not a jab at Garrett at all. I just don't see a big enough distinguishable phenotypic expression to want to start calling that a morph in my eyes.
Right, but what I will say is that if you want to, if he wants to call it Krispy Kreme and it's a Krispy Kreme line, right, and you can like repeat it because you're line breeding and selectively breeding for it, then that's great. Like that's still a valuable asset that people will want to include in their collection. It is really cool. I mean, if Garrett can get to a place where the entire dorsal pattern could be Krispy Kreme down to close to the tail, that would be wild.
That would change my mind, but
that would be wild.
At this point, it doesn't seem like it's a dominant, incomplete dominant, or even a recessive morph.
Yeah, I don't, at least from what I know. I can talk to Garrett and get more info, but it doesn't seem like it follows Mendelian genetics.
No, I feel like with the amount of breedings that have been done on it at this point, we should have had at least a clue.
Right. Okay. So that wraps up the specific MR Jampianus, Saputrii, and Aneurysm that's found on those, as well as the mainland. We're about to jump into the next morph. So the next one, and this is again starting on page 216, is going to be Calico. Calico, fun fact, not a lot of people know this, Probably one of my favorite because of how crazy spontaneous and different they look. The only sad and down part about it is it's just has yet to be proven replicable.
Not replicable, but I believe it's the Calicos that they're let's see, they've changed more at adulthood, correct?
Yeah, they change throughout their life, right? They can be born and have just a few different areas, and they go through different stages. What's crazy is I have a who is it? I have a friend, someone on Instagram that I talked to that they had a platinum, and overnight this platinum completely changed colors in like 3/4 of its body, and it just had this crazy calico thing that happened spontaneously, and the snake's already like 10 foot, right? So sometimes it's like subtle changes, and sometimes it can be quick and overnight and really crazy. But let's
wild examples have all been found on Palau, Kayawati, Tambalangan, Borneo, Riau, Philippines, Sulawesi, and Sumatra. Calicos have a wide degree of variability within their coloration and pattern. The mutation appears to function similarly to vitiligo in humans, where selective patches of skin lose pigment in response to melanocytes being attacked by genetic autoimmune responses, oxidative stress, generation of inflammatory mediators, and melanocyte detachment mechanisms.
Doesn't sound healthy.
I mean, you probably want to limit your sun exposure.
Right. So one thing that I will just revert back to, and I have to talk about this on page 217, that calico ternate locality type, Rodney produced that animal, and it's gone through like 5 different colors, like main color themes within its life. I'll follow up with Rodney to see what that animal's doing. I think he sent it over to Andrew.
In that picture, it almost looks like the best anery you've ever seen, or like more axanthic than anything, actually.
Right. It's the spot on the face that gives it away.
Yeah.
Or else you wouldn't think that, right? But yeah, and then if you look to the page adjacent to it over on 216 to the left of it, that's probably one of my favorite calicos of all time. I've seen that picture.
The one with Bob Clark?
No, the one with Tom Crutchfield and Mr. Dang.
That's what I meant. Tom Crutchfield.
Yeah. That's Tom, dude. Back in 1984. That's crazy. Oh, man. But, so Calico's real special. So when we're talking about Calico, I think the first one here belonged to Tom Crutchfield, and that was in 1984. During one of his initial round-the-world trips, Crutchfield saw a 12-foot-long female calico. That female belonged to Mr. Dang, the originator of the albino Burmese python. At the time, a retic that looked like calico had never been seen. The mosaic of white, yellows, blacks, and grays created a genuinely one-of-a-kind snake. Crutchfield bought the female for $5,000 US. When Crutchfield received the female, Mr. Dang includes a surprise in the shipment. In addition to the calico female, he included a calico male. Crutchfield bred the male and female together in hopes of producing baby. Reticulated python that shared the parents' phenotype. Unfortunately, they did not occur. Crutchfield exported the adults to the Zoo de Granby in Montreal and sold all the progeny from them. In a surprise turn of events, a select few of the babies change into calicos once they hit adulthood. While this is unusual, it fits well within the unusual narrative of these snakes. That's wild.
So it could be something that's passed down in the gene pool, it sounds like, but not necessarily like some of the other morphs.
Yeah. And and it says here, like, if calico appears to function similarly to vitiligo in humans, it says there, selected patches of skin lose pigments in response to melanocytes being attacked by genetic autoimmune responses. So this genetic autoimmune response can happen at any stage of development in this snake, right? So it might be something.
If producing calicos is your game plan, talk about a long play.
Right, because you just have to hope at some point this autoimmune response is going to kick in and boom.
All right, 5 years with this animal hasn't changed yet. Send it away.
And then that probably kicks the autoimmune response in the seller. Seller gets a Calico.
They get sent in the mail and it just fires up.
Right. So Calico, like other mutations, were brought in during the early days of importation that did not prove to be heritable. The purple pink albino, matrix, and semi-humorously a dark red reticulated python that Bob Clark imported from Indonesia in the late 1990s. Reminiscent of a sunset ball python, the snake had a deep maroon coloration, a burnt orange belly, and a wild type pattern. Once the snake was in Clark's possession and shed out, it reverted back to normal.
This is one of my favorite parts of the chapter so far.
In Indonesia, someone had soaked the snake in Kool-Aid to give it the animal its red coloration and tried to pass it off as a new morph to the unsuspecting Clark. Man, Clark got, like, that's, when you think about Bob Clark and what he's done in the retic world, and to see that Bob Clark got kind of tricked like that, it's pretty crazy.
Pretty wild.
Oh man, soak a snake and that picture, by the way, is on page 219. Good old Kool-Aid. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see that.
I mean, you can see you see a red snake. That's for sure. It's pretty wild to me that, like, you could think that something that wildly red.
Right. It looks
it's something
unnatural.
real. Yeah, it's so unnatural.
But hey, if I'm Bob Clark and someone from Indonesia sends me that animal, especially the way that it's being held, like a typical wild caught retic, you better believe that, like, if I'm Bob Clark and I'm importing every morph that I can, I'm spending whatever I need to bring that Kool-Aid in.
Hey, for a prolapse, a Kool-Aid soak might not be the worst thing in the world.
Right. Actually, damn, you might be onto something there.
Yeah.
Never thought of that. I just melt the sugar in, but yeah, just Kool-Aid. All right. So that wraps up Calico. Calico is, for me, one of the more heartbreaking morphs and retics because it's not something that's predictable and heritable. And, if we could replicate and we had a way to, like, mathematically, like we do in Mendelian genetics, be able to predict outcomes of Calico, that would, you would probably see me being a lot more of a morph guy, as I like to kind of jokingly shit on morphs and prefer the localities. But if Calico was something we could do, I would be working with it a lot.
Well, then we might as well talk about Paradox. It's a phenotypic mutation that has spontaneously arisen multiple times in reticulated pythons and MR Jampionus crosses. It results in small random dark dots or patterns that conflict with the primary pattern or color. For unknown reasons, when paradox animals arise, it is often seen in Clark strain albinos. The reason for this is unknown and does not exclusively occur within that mutation. Like Calico, at this time, it has not been proven to be a heritable trait. There are other forms of heritable paradoxing, like that seen in cow and white Calamea reticulated pythons. However, that paradoxing results from an allelic combination separate from other forms of paradoxes whose mechanisms are unknown.
Yeah. So what's really cool is Paul and Stacy with Anunnaki, they just produce what looks like a what the heck is it called?
Paradox?
Paradox, but more of a what was the term that you just read? The one that splits the face in half. Hold on.
Excessive pushing?
No.
I've seen that in reticulated pythons.
I thought you literally just read.
Nothing about a split face.
No, so it's where it's the different alleles present on the animal in different areas, but not in other areas. So it's a man, whatever. I'll figure it out as we continue. It'll pop up and I'll just remember. But yeah, they had a clutch that looked like there was a lot of paradoxy, and then also this mutation that I'm thinking about. It's a weird thing. It'll come
Like, well, in the sentence you're hoping to find is like Calico at this time, it is not yet to be proven a heritable trait. There are other forms of heritable paradoxing like that seen in cow, white calamaya, reticulated python, and white calamaya reticulated pythons.
That's what you said. White calamayas, but that's it reminded me of that specific mutation, that name. But anyways, I'll figure it out.
Okay.
But on the top, page 219, we get into Anthrax, genetic stripe, and golden child, orange ghost stripe, and phantom stripe are common phenotype mutations found in retics that have been dubbed dwarfs, and by extension, part of MR Jampianus or MR saputrii. I love the debunk here. Ready? Many original imported examples of those mutations came in under the typical size for an adult reticulated python. As such, they were coined dwarfs. While it is possible that the original wild-collected examples of these morphs traveled through Solaire or Tanagempeia as part of their captive reptile trade or skin trade, there is no concrete evidence to suggest that they arose in MR Jampianus or MR saputrii. So it's going to go into talking about Anthrax, genetic stripe, all those different ones that at some point have been termed dwarfs, and you're going to see where all of those animals originated from and where they have actually been collected and photographed. None of them are Solaire or Tanagempeia. Can we for a second just talk about that paradox golden child on the bottom of 220?
Paradox golden child cow.
Yeah, the important part.
I don't. It almost reminds me of some other python species, like almost.
Does it look retic?
Like almost to a point. There's like areas that almost start reminding me of like ebolans a little bit, but
yeah, it's just it has the black and white stripes that kind of go through. And man, why'd you mute yourself? That would have been great. Gesundheit.
Yeah, that would have been audio hell for the audio listeners of the podcast. So you're welcome for not having me sneeze directly into the mic.
Oh, man. All right, let's jump into Anthrax. If you look at the top of page 221 is the OG original Anthrax, which in my opinion is one of, if not the GOAT of Anthraxes.
The really dark stuff is my favorite.
I miss the really dark stuff. Now, the newer Silverline Anthraxes, and I think the Anthraxes that Superdorse produce, they look amazing.
That's something I would love to bring up, and that was kind of already on the shared screen. Let me get it back to it.
It's the Silverline Anthrax. Travis Warren has one that is dynamite, dude. It literally it's silver, has thin blacks, and has this like neon yellow color that just that's not even Travis's, but that thing
it's not sick. Travis's, but this is
there's no albino in that, or is it?
No, it's a let's see, Mochino Anthrax het purple Silverline.
Go. I mean, it's beautiful, but get out of there, like stop sharing here and find the original one from what's his face, from Travis. And I don't want to say original Silverline, but he does have a amazing Silverline Anthrax. Do that. I'll start reading. So, the original Anthrax or hypermelanistic motley stripe was imported by New England reptile distributors Nerd. So, fun fact, didn't even know that Anthrax was also called hypermelanistic motley stripe.
Nope.
Who in recent years has attributed the mutation to being captured on Palua Solaire. And that was a claim that was made by Nerd. When Anthrax was first imported, it was not considered a dwarf. It was not until decades after its initial importation was the term used to describe the mutation. Since its original importation, Anthrax has been found multiple times throughout Sumatra. Specifically, certain examples have been found in Aceh, I guess that's what it is, Aceh, I don't know, the northernmost province of Sumatra, in the Riau province, on the central eastern coast of Sumatra, and in Palembang, South Sumatra.
I'm not able to find Travis's.
No, son of a gun. I'll go for 2 tonight. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Your brain's starting to rot from the Retic Nation. I'm sorry.
Oh, man. Travis has sent me the picture individually. I can go in and find it and send it to you, but I don't know what that's going to do.
Yeah.
With that being said, Nerd made the claim they were Salayers, but because of the number of anthraxes found in varying locations throughout the island of Sumatra, Anthrax has the largest range in any base morph and reticulated pythons within a single island. No further examples of anthrax have been found on Palau's Salayer. So you think about how many anthraxes have been found in Sumatra, but yet they were supposed to be imported from Salayer, but yet not a single other one was founded in Salayer. So I tell people all the time that they have anthraxes. I see them. They're like, hey, I got this anthrax. It was sold to me as a dwarf. And I was like, did they tell you if there's Jamp or Salayer in there? They're like, no. I'm like, then it's not a dwarf. Anthrax, I have seen some massive anthrax animals.
And from what I know about the collectors in Indonesia, they love to share any morph found in the wild. And so at this point, you would think that one would have popped up, at least being shown off.
Right. Now, what I will say is Anthrax, to me, I think has some of the craziest, most diverse looks of any single morph, especially when you combine them. So when you look at page 222, on the bottom, that's a granite back. That is so Anthrax is a recessive trait that we call it recessive. The het to that we refer to as granite back, and that's what a het Axanthic looks like. But yeah, if you look at
Axanthic?
Not
Anthrax.
Axanthic, sorry, Anthrax.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely not Axanthic.
I think, and this is pure opinion, but I think some of the granite backs look better than some of the marbles.
Without a doubt, especially with the Superdwarf influence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you have on the bottom there again, Tiger Anthrax. Such a really it looks silky smooth. And then Jake Klotz has a few animals on page 224, 225 that just are really, again, crazy, wild differences of what anthrax can look like. Okay, so there is the het. So granite back is the het, and it was first produced in 2004 from the original Anthrax, bred to a calico called poison ivy. Descendants from poison ivy are frequently referred to as ivy line animals. So that's kind of like the little history of anthrax there. Oh, wait.
Some of my favorite morphs, and should have been working with them at this point. But story for a different day.
Yeah, a frustrating story for sure.
Let's get into genetic stripe
Which, by the way, genetic stripe easily, and no one can tell me differently, easily one of the most underrated recessive traits in all of retics. I know that people are going to say, what's the point of genetic stripe when retics are supposed to have pattern? I don't care. It's one of my favorite. They look amazing.
Hey, some of my favorite animals I've ever produced are golden childs. Mm-hmm. Anery golden child. They're with nice rosettes, really dark, nothing better. And there's no pattern on that animal.
Right.
Bob Clark of Bob Clark Reptiles imported the original genetic stripe mutation. The first genetic stripe was imported into the U.S. in late 1996 from Indonesia as a juvenile. In 2001, it was proven to be a simple recessive heritable trait when Clark bred the original Indonesian wild collected male to another Indonesian genetic stripe that made it to Clark by the way of United Kingdom. As a bolt, wow, told you. Even with the text in front of me,
you were combining adults in both. You said as a bolts.
Too much talking today. As adults, both wild collected genetic stripes were smaller than the typical mainland reticulated pythons, hence being called dwarfs. While subtle, genetic stripe heterozygotes can display a slightly striped dorsal pattern.
Yeah. So again, when we think about what dwarfs are labeled as here in the US and in UK as well, all over the world, like, people consider dwarf and super dwarfs generally by specific islands, right? It'd be different if people were labeling retics as small, medium, and large localities or sub-localities, but we're not doing that. But genetic stripe was considered to be a dwarf because the adults were smaller. And I've talked to some people working with genetic stripe that say that the animals do stay smaller than other of their mainlands, but they have been found several times on the island of Madura near East Java. Likewise, there was one found in East Java near Madura and in Bali. Should be noted that the reticulated pythons found in East Java tend to be of smaller body size compared to other mainland locality types. So, there was also a genetic stripe found on Sulawesi, though it was likely a released pet because it was found in impeccable shape for an animal in the wild. Finally, there is a genetic stripe like reticulated python found on Sumatra. However, when the Sumatran genetic stripe was bred to a known line of genetic stripes, they were incompatible. So two separate, distinct genetic differences between two animals that phenotypically look the same. That's pretty cool.
Do you want to talk about what we mean by incompatible when breeding these animals?
Yeah. So, I mean, essentially, if you take a genetic stripe to a genetic stripe, you're going to produce genetic stripes, right? So someone took a genetic stripe that was bred to a known line already that was likely from the Java area, and there was this wild-caught genetic stripe Sulawesi. When they bred them together, it did not result in genetic stripe animals. So what that's basically, what that tells me, if I could make an inference or an assumption, is that it's a different mutation. It doesn't work the same.
Yeah, I just don't want it to be confused with a fatal or failure to thrive combo.
Yeah, exactly. No. Yeah.
They produce fine offspring. They're just not going to exhibit that phenotypic expression.
Right. But what if they took the babies back together and made a double visual genetic stripe to whatever the hell that was? What would that do? Anyways, I could go on for days on that. All right, that wraps up genetic stripe again. If you want to look at the beautiful friggin' pictures on 226, Bob Clark and Jake threw some pictures out there, and both of them, again, like they're silky, smooth animals. They're beautiful.
I do like that there are morph combos represented in the pictures. For me, though, I wish that most of these pictures in this chapter were sticking to just the single gene phenotypic expression of these animals to show the variability within the different mutations.
I think what Glenn did with a lot of these was tried showing the phenotype that represents, so for example, that genetic stripe, phantom stripe sunfire, I think he included that picture because it is a very clear demonstration of that striping out, right?
Yeah, but to me, like Sunfire and Phantom both stripe out a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So it's like cheating the game a little bit to me. But I understand it. It's a good example of how these morphs can play with one another. But yeah, that's just my thinking.
Yeah. All right, let's dive into one of your favorites.
Yeah, so the original, and this is something I work with heavy, so go figure. The original Golden Child was imported by Nerd, and like Anthrax, was claimed to be captured on Palau Solaire. Upon importation, the original Golden Child, named Ricardo, was bred with a pure Solaire type at Reach Out Reptiles in 2021. The first captive bred and born Golden Childs from that pairing were put up for sale for $30,000 apiece. The resulting wild type progeny did not have the typical MR Saputrii look, which would have been indicative that it did arise from Solaire Island, once bred to a wild collected example from that island. It has been thought that the original wild collected golden child male could have been found in Sulawesi or in the Ambon region. However, that is purely speculation from Indonesian exporters. Further complicating the matter, on February 9th, 2023, an adult golden child-like animal was found on the Riau province in Sumatra near an oil palm plantation. On April 16th, 2023, yet another golden child-like animal was found in the Riau near an oil palm plantation, this time a subadult. In addition, there were accompanying claims that the other two golden child-like animals, skip the pictures, found in the jungles of Sumatra were found in the jungles of Sumatra. No further examples of golden childs have been found on Pulau Solaire.
It's interesting that the people that like to make the claims that like different animals that were found on Dorf Island, they both happen to be Solaire out of all the islands, right? It's just like magically it's Solaire both times. Here's one thing that I'll say about golden childs that you know right off the bat that it's not Solaire. Solaires are Saputri. Saputris have that blunted nose. They have a very different scalation. Golden childs, especially some of the older ones, are very elongated noses. They do not have that blunted effect that the Solaires do from the wild caught one that was produced. And that's also another issue that came up with Nerd. And I'm not saying, I'm giving you guys some Retic history here. I'm not saying this in a negative light about Nerd, but because they were saying that they were from Solaire, they were taking that golden child, they were taking it to actual Solaires, and they were selling the offspring as pure Solaires. So people were getting wild type that, yes, had Solaire influence because it was bred to a Solaire. But it was taken to that golden child. And so there's a lot of Solaire type animals that are out there that are not actually Solaires that people are like, oh, I bought it from Nerd as a Solaire, but it came from a golden child to Solaire pairing.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of talk of different instances like that throughout this chapter. Right. It's interesting. Golden child is an incomplete dominant mutation. The homozygous form or super golden child is considered to be a failure to thrive morph. Of the few produced, they appear to share a head wobble seen in the mutation of mutation and spider ball pythons. I believe that's worded a little incorrectly there.
Yeah. Wait, hold on. Where is it? I want to make fun of him.
Second sentence of the second paragraph. The homozygous form of or super golden child is considered to be a failure to thrive more. Of the few produced, they appear to share a head wobble seen in the mutation and spider ball pythons. No, it's not. I'm just
okay.
It's just processing weird to me. Certain examples have also had head deformities. Despite these issues, there have been reports of homozygous golden childs surviving into adulthood. There are less than 10 adult homozygous golden childs publicly known. The heterozygous form of golden child does not appear to share any of the same issues seen in its homozygous form and has successfully been kept and bred in captivity for decades. It is difficult to make blanket statements about the condition of the homozygous form of the mutation because it's rarely seen in captivity.
Okay, let me just real quick disclaimer for anybody out there. If you see a super golden child for sale, don't buy it. I had someone contact me that was like, hey, I bought this super golden child from Bob Clark and I was like, how much you pay? It's like $1,500. And I was like, can you send me a picture of the snake? Sends me a picture of the snake. It looks like a golden child, right? Like it doesn't look any different. And then I was like, that looks like a golden child. And then they're like, no. And they sent me a screenshot of the listing. Guys, don't spend money on a super golden child. It's not a winning bet. You're taking a gamble. You're taking a risk. And yeah, they're not strong animals. I think that person did end up returning the snake, but I don't know. But yeah, just there are some people that are going to say, I have plenty of super golden childs that have survived. Yeah, let me see an adult one, please.
Yeah. I haven't. I mean,
I haven't either.
Yeah. Orange Ghost Stripe, Lucas.
Dude, I love orange. Let me tell you, Orange Ghost Stripe is up there for me as well. Like, I know that if you take them to Phantoms, they make cows. Like, the sky's the limit with Orange Ghost Stripe. But one of the things I'm most excited for in my garage right now is taking the Orange Ghost Stripe. There was the purple OGS that I took to my Solaire. So I want to isolate and try to make like 87.5% Solaire OGS.
Just to increase that red a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's going to create just a very beautiful, rich, deep color. And we're going to get back to darkening OGS like it used to be. Like if you look at the top of page 231, you see how dark that original OGS is?
That and what pops out to me, since it's a wild collective OGS.
Battle scars.
It is scarred up beyond belief.
I haven't seen scarring that bad in many snakes. That's gnarly. That thing looks like it got ripped apart by a monitor.
I wonder how fun that was to work with.
Right, we'll ask Shane. But yeah, so Orange Ghost Stripe. It's also referred to as striped hyperexanthic. Was imported by Nerd. When the first example of the mutation was imported, it was brought in as a male and was only 3.5 feet or 1.1 meters long. Upon arrival, it was evident that the animal was in extremely poor condition. A portion of its spine was exposed from a rat attack while at the reptile. Oh, son of a! I thought it was a freaking monitor. Nope. Yeah, so it got attacked by a rat while at the reptile farm in Indonesia. Like many wild collected reticulated pythons, it had an exceptionally poor disposition, and the major trauma it suffered from the rat attack did not help. In addition, once it was brought to the U.S., it was realized that the male was actually a female. Dum, dum, dum. That's dangerous. Well, actually, no. I guess that's best case scenario because you're going to put a female in with a female accidentally instead of the opposite. Mm-hmm. So the wound took several years, or took a year to heal and several months before the female was ready to be bred. Eventually, she was bred to the wild collected golden child, and the first heterozygous orange ghost stripe, or what we call hogs, was produced. Hogs are perhaps the most visually apparent heterozygous in the species. They often look like an intermediary between a wild type and an orange ghost stripe with outsized dorsal ovals and generally lighter appearance with orange undertones. Later in 2008, it was proven to be a simple recessive mutation by Nerd. So, yeah, orange ghost stripe. Look at the one on the top by Bob Clark on page 232. Mm-hmm. That's pretty badass.
Yeah. I mean, almost, so orange and like so lacking in pigment that you would almost start to think it's a form of albinism, especially in that example.
Yeah, exactly. Now, it is claimed that the original striped hyperexanthic, aka orange ghost stripe, came from both Tanajampea and Palua Solaire. However, like genetic stripe, orange ghost stripe has spontaneously arisen in East Java multiple times, including Blitar City, in addition to one found in Bali. No further examples of OGS have been found on Tanajampea or Solaire. So what's cool about this was Nerd making this claim again about Solaire, but this time they're like, let's add Jampea in there too.
Yeah, my best guess is that it's all export information and they're just going purely off either bag labels or, where this farm was, et cetera, but it's most likely that this was collected, sent to a farm, and then sent out to New England Reptile.
Yeah, the only thing that I could also guess is maybe they were just clumping it as that locality because the animals were coming in smaller. And back in the day, we just knew dwarfs as Jampeo or Solayers, right?
It's possible.
So what's really cool about Orange Ghost Stripe is that it is allelic with so many different morphs. We jump into the next one here, and that is Phantom Stripe, or more commonly known as Phantom. Nathan, take us away.
Yet another mutation referred to as dwarf. Raimondi and McCurley 2019. It is an incomplete dominant that was first proven heritable by Nerd. Rather than being found on Tana Jampea or Solaire, the two commonly accepted dwarf islands in the Solaire island chain, Phantom Stripe has been found on Java and Sumatra. No further examples of Phantom have been found on the Solaire island chain.
Yeah, so real quick before you continue, I do want to point out some phantoms on the next page. So that phantom on the top left is a phantom that has the Mindanao Philippine influence. Such a cool animal.
Yeah, the pattern's really broken up. Really long rosettes, like really open pattern. It's cool.
Yeah. Also gotta love Super Phantom. Honestly, that's a dream snake of mine.
I'm close.
I actually want an Anthrax Super Phantom so I can get a Black-Eyed Lucy.
Yeah, that's the responsible way to do it.
Exactly. And John Weatherford, I believe, is producing them. So, and then there's an Orange Glow Purple or an Orange Glow Phantom Stripe Ocelot. So that's Phantom when you combine it with albino and Ocelot, and then you have the Phantom Stripe Sunfire Tiger Anthrax that just looks ridiculous.
My favorite has to be that Orange Glow Purple Phantom Ocelot. That's insane.
That's a stupid snake. Like that thing
So
is
chaotic.
insane.
It breaks it up a lot of the rosettes into like these double rosettes. Like just so much purple and like mocha or not mocha. So much of that orange glow and purple influence on it. It's wild looking.
The animal is aging.
Like I said,
fine wine too.
Camera's not going to do justice, but it's insane what that animal looks like.
Yeah. Then when you come up on the next page, it starts to get into cows. Now, Nathan, why are cows being shown on here?
Well, when mixed with Phantom and the aforementioned head orange ghost stripe or orange ghost stripe, you get the allelic combination that turns a white snake into a white snake that develops almost paradox-like spots.
But it's replicable.
Yep.
So yeah, a popular leucistic cow retic happens when you take an OGS and a Phantom. The first cow was made by Nerd when they bred an orange ghost stripe to what was thought to be another orange ghost stripe. In reality, it was a Phantom stripe, and resulting progeny were cows. The homozygous version of a Phantom stripe, a blue-eyed leucistic, resulted in an all-white snake with blue eyes. At this time, blue-eyed leucistics do not seem to exhibit the same gastrointestinal and failure to thrive issues commonly associated with their black-eyed counterparts. And
a lot of people seek out that black-eyed leucistic. For me, the blue-eyed beats it out, and I guess that's lucky in terms of like
taste preference.
It's a good taste preference in terms of it just being sustainable.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's nice to know that in the retic world, we can make a healthy, all white retic. Now, what I will say is I've seen a super Phantom, and I've seen, a super lemon glow, or AKA a black-eyed Lucy. I've seen them both in person.
I have too.
And I will say the black-eyed Lucies from the lemon glows, the white, I think, is more of a true white than the Phantoms. The Phantoms, like when you hold them up to light, have that like pink, transparent kind of look to it.
I'm seeing if I have examples in my photos because I have both.
Yeah, but
I don't have both, but I've got to see both at different shows.
Whereas, like, if you guys know, like, the black that's on an Eastern Indigo, that like deep, thick black, that's what the black-eyed leucistics look like from the Lemon Glows line. Like but white, right? Like it's a genuine white snake, whereas super phantoms kind of have like, it's white clearly, but they have kind of like that pinkish undertone to them. Nathan, would you say that's correct?
Yeah. Do you want me to pull up that or the black-eyed first?
Whichever.
Ooh, okay.
Make me guess which one it is. Get it? Because eyes.
Well,
It'd be
the
easy.
one I saw in Chicago, so that should be easier to find.
Okay.
Give me a moment.
Do that. Let me go ahead and just kind of talk about these genetics a little bit more.
Okay.
So interestingly, Phantom Stripe and Orange Ghost Stripe are part of an allelic series with a morph rarely seen in captivity called Bacan, and a recently identified morph called teak. So I learned about teak for the first time when I was reading this chapter, by the way. The original Bacan was found in Sumatra and is an incomplete dominant. Only one legally imported Bacan made it into the U.S. before the ban of 2015 by Aubrey Pruitt, who named her Connie. In contrast to the smaller lengths commonly seen in Phantom Stripe and Orange Ghost Stripe, Connie is 17 feet. I have a theory on why Connie is 17 feet.
Okay.
Food.
I mean, yes and no, right? Because we've seen animals that get slammed with food, but yet don't grow. I mean,
Those Pruitt brothers feed those retics heavy.
True, but the thing that I think about is like the Karumpa locality types. People have tried to slam those with food, yet still,
Yeah.
not much in terms of getting it to grow in excessive amounts.
Yeah. If anyone would like to donate a Karumpa to me, for me to test my hypothesis on food, send it over. I'll do the hypothesis. We'll call it even. I'll feed it heavy, see what happens. That's also likely just my way of getting a free Karumpa, but if anyone's open to it, send one.
I cannot, for the life of me, find that Super Phantom. Let me see if I can find the Black-Eyed Lucy.
Okay. Let's talk about Bacan. So we talked about Phantom. We talked about OGS. Now we're talking about Bacan. And again, Bacan is also allelic with both of those. So the original wild collected Bacan was found in Lampung, Sumatra, and was taken to Prestasi Reptile Farm. There he was bred to a wild-type female. Half of the resulting progeny shared the father's phenotype, indicating it to be incomplete dominant or dominant. Once the progeny reached breeding size, the original male was bred back to his daughter that shared his phenotype. In the clutch of 3, one wild type, one female Bacan, and one male Emeraldo. The homozygous form of Bacan hatched, proving it to be incomplete dominant. So when you take a Bacan to a Bacan, you end up with Emeraldo. If you guys want to know what an Emeraldo looks like, on the top of page 241, that is an Emeraldo.
And back to the blue or Black-Eyed Lucy.
Boom. Pretty snake.
Yeah,
insanely. Oh, that was Weston's, right?
Yeah, it was Weston's. He spoke to the gastrointestinal issues that these animals were facing, hard belly, and I believe this was one of a clutch that had 3 or 4, and this was the last one remaining.
Yeah. Wonder what happened to it.
I mean,
really cool snake.
Educated guess, it's not around anymore.
Yeah, probably.
But Lucas, you want to switch us back to just you and I?
I sure can, buddy.
Alrighty.
Okay, so where was I? Okay, so The female Bacan was then imported into the U.S. to Pruitt before publicly announcing the project. In March-April of 2015, Pruitt arranged for the male Emeraldo to be imported into the U.S. Unfortunately, due to the timing, the male could not be imported due to the addition of reticulated pythons to the Lacey Act as a non-native injurious species. As such, Connie is the only legally imported Bacan in the U.S. For those that don't know why legally is being kind of emphasized there, is because we magically found some back in 2023 that were not part of that original female, but we'll just slide that one under the rug a little bit.
Lucas.
All right, Nathan, talk about Emeraldos.
All right, Emeraldos.
And then after you read about them, I want to know what your opinion is on them.
Well, asking the wrong person, my friend. I don't know a ton about them.
You're going to see a picture of it on the top of the next page.
Okay. Well, Emeraldos result in highly reduced pattern, dull gold-colored animal with light eyes and white side rosettes. When a Bacan is bred to a phantom stripe, an animal similar to the cow reticulated python called a white calamea is produced. A white calamea is a blue-eyed leucistic snake with yellow striping, paradoxing, and a bright yellow head. When a Bacan is bred to an orange ghost stripe, the resulting progeny is called an amber, which is visually similar to a homozygous orange ghost stripe.
For those that don't know these morphs, they're listening to this and they're reading this and they're like, I don't get it. Just know that if you take a phantom to a genetic stripe to a Bacan, a Bacan to a phantom stripe, they all make something different, but they're all compatible. So it's really crazy.
Oh, actually, I believe I have seen Emeraldos on Bob's table before. What do I think of it?
Yeah, like that to me is it's weird.
They're weird. The top example on 241, I believe, is a little less desirable than the Bob Clark version underneath, but also not great lighting on that picture either.
Yeah, no. I just they almost look like a calico of their own. They look off.
Yeah, but not totally calico in that sense. It almost looks like scale separation more than it does calico.
Yeah.
It's not scale separation, but
no, it's not. It's just
almost what it appears like.
Yeah, it's like an ombre hairdo.
Sure. I mean, I guess it is lighter at the top and a little darker at the bottom, but
Oh, jeez.
You're talking to someone who does hair every single day.
I got it wrong. I'm sorry.
I don't do color, but I know what it...
You've done color before.
I have, but that's not what I would consider an ombre. But
okay. Let's talk about teak. Because this was new to me when I was going through the chapter.
Okay. Teak is the most recently identified mutation in the Bacan, Phantom Stripe, Orange Ghost Stripe, and Teak allelic series.
It's a saga. It's what it is.
It's the Star Wars of retics.
Right.
The wild collective female teak was found in Malaysia and initially presumed to be an orange ghost stripe due to its dark orange coloration and dorsal stripe. It was first proven heritable by RF Farms in Thailand. Teak is believed to be an incomplete dominant mutation based on the mode of heritability shared by other mutations in its allelic series. However, due to the novelty of the mutation, its exact mode of inheritance is not fully known. The wild collected female was first bred to a golden child and phantom stripe male. The resulting progeny exhibited wild type, golden child, teak phenotypes.
Which we had a picture of that on here, but we don't. Maybe that's something you can look up on the Retic Nation. No, I'm being dead serious.
I give up, but I'll try.
I mean, this one should be pretty clear and easy if it's available. I'm not sure it is.
Okay.
But in addition, a leucistic snake with silver eyes and a yellow head appeared in the clutch. In 2023, the wild collected female was then bred to a tiger phantom stripe male. The resulting progeny exhibited the wild type, tiger, phantom strike, tiger teak, and 3 more leucistic snakes with silver eyes and yellow heads. Could you imagine a white snake, yellow head, and silver eyes?
I mean, you want to see it?
Do you know what they called it?
A bean sprout.
A bean sprouts. The bean
And
sprouts.
yep, I can imagine it because I have it pulled up. This is where the Retic Nation hasn't failed us tonight. There's a teak.
Okay, cool. I like that.
There's a bean sprout.
Look at the bean sprout. That's adorable.
Yellow head, silver eyes, and white body is pretty cool.
Okay.
It almost looks like there's a little paradoxing by the tail or some
Yeah,
kind of pattern popping out.
I think from the entire like allelic saga, I think that might be my favorite.
Not shabby. Not shabby at all.
That's pretty damn cool. I think I'd take that over a cow.
Let's see what else we got here. Nothing labeled. Okay. Maybe
Teaks.
more bean. Yeah. Bean
Or I'm
sprouts.
sorry, more bean sprouts.
Yeah.
That is so badass. Okay, cool. Thank you, Retic Nation.
You did it. Thank you.
We did it. We got one that worked out for us. Jeez. So yeah, bean sprouts. I wonder, man, I wish I could find a random morph. So I mean, if people are naming shit bean sprouts, like,
Wait till you see some of the other names.
you know what, maybe, Chris and I are trying to work on making higher percentage Anarisa layers. Maybe we should call them artichokes because they're green.
Asparagus.
Asparagus? I like asparagus better.
Yeah. No, I mean, what does he call those? He has a name for the super green ones.
I call them like Green Machine or Green Lantern Project. Like when I talked to him and we talked about this, I think I told him Green Lantern Project. I don't know if he's going to go with that, but I'm going to let him just pick whatever he wants.
Yeah, I thought I saw him hint at what he liked, but I could definitely be wrong.
Okay. So, based on the progeny of the second clutch, the first clutch most likely had 2 sires, with the Phantom Stripe siring the first bean sprout. So, let's kind of take us home on this allelic saga here. Bacan, Phantom Stripe, Orange Ghost Stripe, and Teak each have their own molecular variants of the same gene. In the captive setting, that is considered an allelic complex. However, a more accurate description would be that they are part of an allelic series, aka saga. Allelic series are different mutant alleles of a gene or genomic locus that can cause a wide range of phenotypes. Allelic series can produce compound heterozygotes, where each parent gives a different allele that are both located at different loci within the same gene. That's crazy. Like, if you understand that, that's really, really crazy. Because of this, when a Bacan, Phantom Stripe, Orange Ghost Stripe, and Teak are bred to one another, the resulting progeny are phenotypic compound heterozygotes called ambers, cows, white calameas, based on which base morph was bred to which base morph. This allelic series is similar to that found in yellow belly, spark, spectre, gravel, and asphalt ball pythons. So for any of you ball python people that are jumping into retics and like, oh, let's learn about retic morphs, that's what this saga is like. Okay, so Nathan, I know we talked about that we were going to go up until albino.
Well, we're going to end with one last morph.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're at an hour, 20 minutes-ish or so. We are going to end on Tiger. We'll see where timing takes us. But yeah, Tiger is thick in this chapter. Tiger's got, like, I think one of the most profound, it's got the most information out of any other singular morph.
It's the longest captive history of any mutation. But let's get into that. So, tiger reticulated pythons can be credited as sparking the genesis of the reticulated python hobby as we know it today. Carl Herman and Monty Kreisen imported what would become the tiger reticulated python way back in 1986, which they named Old Man. The strange pattern wild collected animal was found on a privately owned oil palm plantation in Jambi, central Sumatra. It would not eat regularly for the first 3 years it was in captivity. This is not uncommon for wild collected reticulated pythons and was a sentiment not uncommon for wild collected reticulated pythons and was a sentiment shared with Bob Clark's original lavender albino male.
Mm-hmm.
For several years.
I'm sorry. You want to know what? So Travis recently just got the jigsaw to have a clutch, the last known jigsaw in the U.S. I'm hoping that when that clutch hatches, Travis is willing to come on to talk about that history. That was another female that literally, like, even this year before that clutch, like, Travis had to force feed that female like 4-pound pigs. Could you imagine like having to assist and force feed that big of meals to keep this animal going?
No.
How stressful does that sound?
I thought it was stressful with babies.
Right.
I could not imagine an animal with some size.
Right. Okay. Sorry to interrupt, but I just
you're good.
That was cool to build on that.
Yeah, no, I no, thank you. Talk about something where I would be refusing to force feed. For several years, Clark pushed Kreisen to breed the original tiger male to a female reticulated python, but the attempts were unsuccessful. At the time, the import was not thought to be all that special, as similar striped reticulated pythons had been seen from the Philippines, a natural pattern variation found there. Eventually, in 1992, when the old man was bred to a Sumatran locality type reticulated python from Clark, half of the progeny shared the old man's phenotype mutation, proving it to be heritable. This pairing also made the first tigers pure Sumatrans.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty special. I mean,
and if you look at the oddball picture that's on 243, like the classic tigers, man, are so amazing. I produced a clutch of tigers with my ocelot to a Bali tiger, and it produced that classic look. Nothing beats that, in my opinion. Like in terms of tigers, like I've seen like the Ternate influenced tigers, the Mindanao influenced tigers. I've seen Superdorf influenced tigers. Like all of it takes away from like the original OG tiger look.
That's why my most recent clutch that had tigers in it, the clutch that you got a tiger female from, was my favorite tigers I ever produced. Because yes, they have the Calitoa slight Jampea cross influence, especially in the neck pattern, but beyond that, they exhibit a pretty nice, classic tiger.
They have the good classic rosettes on the tigers that is lacking in some of the other ones.
Yeah. Let's see. The old man was bred 3 more times by Herman and kept at his house until it died in 2010, an exceptionally long life for a wild-caught reticulated python. In 1992, at the National Reptile Breeders Expo in Florida, the first captive bred and hatched tigers were offered for sale. Originally, these animals were sold for $1,000, as seen in a classified placed in the Vivarium magazine. Herman, who was also selling tigers at Bob Clark's table, sold out of them on the first day. Suddenly, the snake that initially was not thought to be all that special was being purchased by others who thought differently. On April 15th, 1996, Cindy Baldago made the first homozygous tigers, or super tigers, proving the mutation to be an incomplete dominant. Baldago purchased a trio of tigers from Herman at the 1992 National Reptile Breeders Expo with her fund money, made from breeding Burmese pythons and leopard geckos. The 8 super tigers in the clutch were immediately distinguishable from the heterozygous and wild type forms with their striping, open back pattern, and beige coloration.
I will say Fun fact on the next page, 244 is an example of one of the tigers I produced. But yeah, I will say that super tigers have a really cool look. I'm a super tiger. If you go to page 246, you'll see one at the top. Some of them can look really, really nice. I'm not too big of a I know a lot of people hate on super tigers, but I think they look pretty cool.
Well, I even though I don't think it's critical to the book club, I frequently talk about a book that I really like in terms of just captive reptile history. And this kind of outlines a little bit of how reticulated pythons fit into that. So before Herman and Chrysan's tiger, another tiger-like reticulated pythons were known and bred in captivity. Previous sources have incorrectly stated that the tiger mutation was first produced by Carl Herman and Monty Chrysan. In the early 1980s, however, Fred McCann of Worldwide Aquarium and Hank Molt Jr. of Herpetofauna International, the former being a central character in the book Stolen World, for his role in the genesis of reptile smuggling, imported an aberrant pattern female reticulated python they called Oddball. So that picture that you see on the top of 243.
Yeah. In 1984, when Oddball was bred to an imported Philippine yellowhead, half of the progeny shared Oddball's patterning. Photos show that Oddball's offspring share the same phenotypic expression that other tigers in captivity show. This pairing and resulting progeny predated Herman and Chrysan's by nearly a decade. In 2014, another example of tiger mutation was found in Bisol, Philippines, and in 2019, yet another example was found on Palembang, Sumatra. So, yeah, I mean, tigers, like, if you look at where the Philippines is and then you look at where Sumatra is, tigers have a pretty vast spread, it seems like. I'm sure there's more in between, but, though the base morph compounds will not be discussed at length in this chapter, a particular example should be noted as it has been a source of confusion for hobbyists for decades. The resulting combination of the tiger mutation and genetic stripe mutation is called velvet. Velvets were first produced by Gavin Bowe of In Your Face Exotics in 2009. I hate how he spells exotics. Anyways, originally, velvets were thought to only be produced from specific dwarf crosses that originated from Jason Reed of Reed's Retics. This is because the male...
I'm sorry, but the way he spells it is pretty gangster.
This is because the male used to produce Bowe's clutch of the first velvets was a dwarf tiger cross heterozygous for genetic stripe. In reality, velvets can be produced by any example of tiger mutation and any example of genetic stripe mutation. I like that Glenn's throwing these little like disclaimers and like, hey, just an FYI. Don't fall into this dwarf propaganda. Okay, so let's finish up tigers here with what Glenn has to say. So the confusion that shrouds velvet stems from the fact that the compound of the tiger and genetic stripe mutation is likely an example of partial linkage. Partial linkage is when genes that reside on the same piece of nucleic acid undergo recombination. The closer two genes are together, the rarer the recombination between them. The recombination events for partially linked genes occur at frequencies between 0 to 50%, which speaks to why velvets aren't produced at the expected frequencies for other compounds of incomplete dominant and recessive mutations. So that is something I don't understand, and I'm not going to try to. But for those that do, have at it.
Maybe that's something Glenn and I can jump into, seeing as you will have your own progeny on your hands, or your own second batch of progeny on your hands.
We're not going to jump into albinos because that's next, but I do just want to point out now, I find it funny, and I hope that you cover this on the next one, but on page 249, on that picture.
The non-poisonous.
Non-poisonous snakes for sale. Tom Crutchfield, man.
It was a different
Crutchfield.
time.
It
was a different time, Lucas.
Oh, geez. So cool to see all those different things and their prices back then.
Yeah, I bugged Glenn to send me photocopies of all these price lists, and he's like, "Oh, they'll be in the book." I still want those price lists, Glenn.
Man, children pythons back in the day in 92 were still, hold on. Yeah, $8.75 a pair. Popwin olive pythons, Apodoras. Oh wait, no, that's Liasis popwin. Wait, oh, I guess they went through a change, but $3.75. Man, Indonesian water pythons $1.75. That's freaking cool.
Yeah. It's crazy to see how the market has remained stable in some senses and completely changed in others.
Yeah. All right, that wraps up part 1.
Part 1 of Morphs done. Not as intimidating as I thought while reading through the chapter, but still a lot of information to truly understand, to unpack. And Tiger being a good one to leave off on, because we are going to delve into Tiger and maybe some of its pitfalls in the next episode.
Yeah. Hopefully we can get this person on, but if any of you in the retic industry know who hates tigers, we're hoping to get this guest on here for our next interview for next week. And we are going to be bashing on Tiger. I'm going to try to play the devil's advocate here, but I think it's going to be a fun episode.
I'll have a hard time, but let's go.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to episode 132. Again, shout out to our Patreon members. Thank you so much for all of your support. The Patreon and the Discord has been popping lately. It's been great to go on there and connect with you all. We've had actually quite a few members join over the last month. So thank you, those of you that are new, for joining and supporting us. And if you guys do want to join our community, it's patreon.com/the Retic Lounge. Nate, you got anything else before we wrap up?
No, like I said at the start of the episode, we're going to be running that book club giveaway here this Sunday. So you have approximately a day and a half. I'll be closing all the entries probably sometime on Saturday, just so I can get the wheel all organized. So I'm not doing it last second Sunday morning.
Think about it this way. You pay $5 for 1 month and you potentially can get a $50 book.
Not bad.
And the Discord will keep you there. So anyways.
Yeah, we have a great community of people. So even if you don't win that book, you win a good community of people. So join on up. Catch us on episode 133. Until then, thank you for listening to the Retic Lounge.